Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. It appears that our study of the book of Romans is going to take shape in two videos. In this first video, we're going to go over the three categories we thought we needed to build before we went into Romans, so that we could understand it truthfully and easily. We said that we thought we could do it if we had a basic understanding of the history of Rome ruling Palestine. Secondly, some information about the Jerusalem Council from the book of Acts. And thirdly, some basic biographical info about Paul and the world leading up to the writing of the book. These are three important categories, and if we can understand some basics in those, the book of Romans just becomes light. It's very easy to read and understand, and it has the very power of salvation in it. That's why the book of Romans is so important. So Rome ruled Palestine during the entire New Testament period. Rome occupied Palestine. Rome crucified Jesus. Rome put Paul on trial. Rome sent John to the island of Patmos. Rome would not become a unique central house to the Christian religion until about the 190s AD. But Christianity did thrive there almost immediately. You see, the very earliest Christianity, two things were happening. One, inside Judaism, a sect was forming around Jewish rituals and observations that recognized Jesus Christ as the Messiah and adopted that as well. On the other side, people all around the world, whether Jew, Gentile, or Greek, are having these born-again conversion experiences in Christianity, and they want to become Christians, and they are seeking out Christians, and they don't know where to go, and there's no churches. So the 4 million people in Rome are served by somewhere between 5 and 14 synagogues. Sources disagree because the history of this period is not super well known, contrary to what TV shows might lead you to believe. But what's a fascinating thing is that people viewed the synagogues of the time in Rome as kind of the place you go to develop your spirituality. It was either going to be becoming a Christian through Judaism or becoming a Jew, and confusion about what are we doing at our synagogue. All these people want to become Christians, but we're not Christians, we're Jews. It's confusing, you see. Paul is going to set all this straight in the book of Romans. He's going to show how even though there was this sectarian divide, both pieces of this played such a crucial role in a divine tapestry. Roman rule of Palestine during this New Testament period. The Jewish people self-govern to a degree, and there's two reasons for this. One, the Roman Empire often did that with places that they occupied that were already fairly structured. The second reason is that Antipater, who would produce Herod and his lineage, they were military allies of Caesar when he went against Pompey in Egypt in the 40s to 60s BC, before Christ. We're coming up to zero, and then the life of Christ, we're right there. And they allowed the Antipater family to rule all of Syria, which at the time included Palestine, and that's how they ended up being these kind of pseudo-kings for a period of time. But in matters of execution, that was Rome's job. The Jews could self-govern, but execution was Rome's alone. Pax Romana. To administer justice is Rome's alone. Remember that. That power belongs to Rome alone as we begin preparing to read the book of Romans. All right, in 66, which is past the period of the writing of the book of Romans, most scholars date this between 56 and 58 AD. They know it was written in the winter. They know it was written in the early rule of Nero. There are so many facts that seem very consistent. I looked at secular and church history documents about this book, and I can't find a shred of disagreement that this book is not written when it says it's written. And it's easy to find out, because if you hear things that lead you to believe, something like a 70 AD where the Jerusalem falls, that would be in this letter. It would be in this letter if it had happened. And it's not in this letter. So that does put us before 70. So it's a good fact, good set of facts. So the revolt began that would lead to the collapse of the Jewish system and the persecution of Christians. So in historical terms, these events are described differently, but I have to tell you, I'm not convinced that Christians, during the writing of the book of Romans, and the Jews and their woes were not all lumped in together in the rebellion against Rome and Rome's crackdown. I think there's so much interaction. I think they're the same people being persecuted. In fact, the biggest fear about Jesus and the ultimate reason for his own people turning him over to the Romans was fear that his public ministry would cause Rome to come destroy Jewish holy temples and cities. Now, that gives us a basic foundation of Roman rule of Palestine. The second thing, I said I thought we needed some basic info on a church council. I'm not talking about a council like the Council of Nicaea or the Council of Trent. Those came later. That's when the people would get together with bishops and archbishops from all around the world, wearing the outfits and all that. This Jerusalem council happened very early. Very early. It happened before the book of Romans was written. And the main issue in it was there were lots of Jewish Christians. In fact, the book says, in the book of Acts chapter 15, describing the Jerusalem council, it says, a Pharisee who was also a believer brought up these points. And essentially the point was this: Jewish Christians. Hey, we still have to do the Mosaic law and our customs, and yes, the Messiah came and it's all true, but it works into Judaism. And on the other side, you have people going that aren't Jews going, but wait, I've had this experience too. I'm a Christian. Clearly I don't know anything about your thing, but what about us? And in the middle, the apostles are going, God, do we just stay on this side or do we talk to them? Right? In the book of Romans, Paul is going to establish this, and he's going to solve it, and he's going to show how both sects are an important part of a puzzle. But here's why I wanted us to keep it in mind. I think there's a tendency in America, when we hear about church councils, to think that the good right view went against the heretical view, and when the good right view won, the heretical view just went away and disappeared, and we never had to think about it again. But that's not what happened. Not in one example. Every single time, this side that was a heretic continued to practice Christianity the way they believed it. They just became another sect. But they don't disappear. So when we read the New Testament, we have to understand this dynamic. We almost feel like we're scared to admit that it's clear that some of the men are writing from slightly different perspectives. Oh, it all has to go together for the same message, or what? It all leads to Jesus Christ. The justification, redemption through Jesus Christ that we will read about in the book of Romans. So we have to understand that after church councils, groups of Christians continue to exist. Now, Paul, right in the book of Romans, it's written during winter between 56 and 58 AD. This is less than 30 years from the resurrection. Hundreds of living witnesses are still alive. Given such a short amount of time had gone by since Christ's resurrection, Tiberius, Gaius, Claudius had all been emperor, and now Nero was. Interestingly, no one really criticizes Nero's early reign. It's almost like they all believe that something happened and he just snapped and went crazy. There's, I guess, a fascinating story there if you're a Roman historian. But the Jews and Christians of the time had a lot of trouble. I mean, there's one event talked about in the church history where 30,000 Jews were killed on the day of Passover. They were trampled by just some small public nothing. So there was hardships all the time. There's letters in Claudius's papers talking about the Jewish situation in Alexandria, and they had been given the right to live in peace, but there were some uprising issues. But guess what? The issue turning Judaism on its head throughout this whole region was Christianity, people. Right? We don't think of that, but that's what it was. It's interesting because we have Christianity growing throughout the world of the time, and it's growing inside the stricture of Judaism. That's the point, and we're going to see it so much in Romans, and we're going to understand how both pieces fit together. So Paul is a Hebrew. He's a trained elite. He's also a Roman citizen who at one point was killing Christians, dragging them out of their house, jailing them, but ends up having a dramatic conversion and becomes arguably the most, at least cogent, early Christian documentarian. This guy really gives us a lot of great stuff. He wrote the book of Romans from Corinth in Greece, where he had been staying for about 3 months. While he was there, he was collecting an offering to take to the saints of Jerusalem. Just the old guys, right? I don't know why this is such a thing, right? The saints, the founders of our faith, the apostles and their students, right? Christianity is not a business. The prosperity gospel has destroyed it as a livelihood for just normal everyday people. But I promise you, anyone who hangs out a shingle of ministry and is sincerely doing it is literally just totally in God's hands for everything they eat, the clothes they wear, paying their mortgage, paying their bills. There's not a paycheck that comes from God. So Paul has to ask for help. And he's going to take this offering he's been collecting down to Jerusalem and give it to the saints down there. Now, Paul was having trouble with the Jews at the time because he was preaching this kind of non-Judaizer Christian message. He was rocking the boat, So he ends up in Corinth, get this, after having caused a riot in Ephesus. And he's got money on him for the saints in Jerusalem. And he sits down to write to the Roman church, right? And let me tell you what the Roman church is at the time. Unestablished. We have the synagogues. We have strong Judaized sects of Christianity. We have a lot of individual Christians hearing the gospel and getting converted, but they've got nowhere to go. This is the letter. This is who Paul's writing to. It says in the first chapter that he's going to establish them. So my man causes a riot in Ephesus, lands in Corinth with his money for the saints, but he starts taking up the pen because he wants to evangelize in Spain. Spain! Look at this map. Here's where Paul is born. Here's where he is right now in Corinth. And he's writing to Rome because he wants to go here, that far, that early. That's amazing, but he needs money to do it. Again, the preachers have to eat, right? Those spoiled apples on TV really ruin the whole bunch, I'll tell you. He's reliant on them, and he says it in his letter of Romans. He says, I live off the good nature of Greeks and barbarians. It's almost humorous. We'll get to it when we read it. So he is writing the book of Romans in 56 to 57 AD from Corinth, where he's been for 3 months. And he wants to go evangelize Spain. He wants to help establish the church, leave some spiritual gifts there. So the letter talks about him preparing for a visit. He wants to get prayers and money. Very important. Prayer is emphasized. He provides a detailed treatment. This is where it's going to really be key for us. He provides a detailed treatment of Christian doctrine with respect to both Judaizers and Gentile Christians, and how they both play into the role together. He warns against false teaching, but I got to tell you, he's talking to the Romans then. He's not talking to us, okay? We can't interpret this to target false teachers today. Not to mention that Paul is probably talking about the Jewish Christians here, right? This is a divinely inspired book, and I will show you the power of it when we preach from it. But Paul is still a human being, and it is a very normal reaction, right? Careful of those false teachings. I'm going to tell you the way it is. And he delivers because the power of God is in it. So we'll see. He points out in Romans a key thing. That thing is that the Mosaic law doesn't offer justification at all, which is needed to be made right with God. He's going to set up this scenario where the law and adherence to the law brings you to a place of, oh no, have mercy, I can't do this. It reveals God's perfect law and our inability to keep it. The Jews are God's special called people because they were given the oracles of God and the law of God is written on their heart. He is one. Imagine how devastated he must be that so many more of his people didn't see the Messiah for who he was. All right, we'll call it there. Now we're ready. We're going to read the book of Romans just straight from it. And that's going to be the next video. If you feel I'm earning anything, make something happen about it. If you're curious whether you think you should support us, go to God about it. God bless you, my friends. May your work today bear fruit. I will see you in a few days on the next one. Thanks.
Dragging me down, pushing me away.